Welcome back to Around Town. I'm here with the producer of our second segment, Grant Mukai. Grant, what can you tell us about this story?
Well, Rebecca, I basically did my story on the Boston Marathon. I had the opportunity to profile 3 different runners from Wellesley and talk to them a little bit about the charities that they're running for, since all 3 of them were charity runners. Asked them a little bit about their charities and how they're preparing for the marathon.
Well, definitely sounds interesting. What stood out to you, though, as you were taking the time researching the story?
I think one of the things that was interesting to me was just the fact that I was able to talk to so many different people. Each runner that I talked to kind of had a different way that they were running the race. They had a different reason for running, and just the variety really stood out to me.
It definitely sounds interesting, Grant, but why should the people of Wellesley take the time to take a look at this?
Well, like I just mentioned, all 3 of the runners that I talked to are Wellesley residents, and given the fact that the Boston Marathon is an international event, and there are thousands and thousands of people who are running, I think a lot of Wellesley residents would be interested in seeing how their neighbors are participating in this event.
Well, Grant, definitely sounds like a great story. Let's take a look.
From Hopkinton to Copley Square, everybody loves the Boston Marathon. This year, there were 78 runners from Wellesley who signed up to participate. I met with 3 unique Wellesley runners to learn a little bit more about their stories. Ann Bolson is a Wellesley resident who, along with her husband Peter, is training for the marathon using a program she found on the internet.
It's a 20-week training program, so we started on Thanksgiving weekend, and we followed a plan from the internet, from another marathon runner, and you just follow what he says. So you start out probably at like 30-mile weeks, then 35-mile weeks, and now we're up to 45-mile weeks. There's a long run every week, and it's from 15 to 21 miles. And then 3 weeks before the marathon, you do your last long run. So this Saturday, March 24th, we do 21 miles. And then after that, it's a slow taper to the marathon, so your legs are ready. The first week of the training, the runs aren't very long. And the first long run was only 10 miles. And then every weekend it goes, 10 miles, then 12 miles, then 14 miles, then back down to 10 miles, then 14 miles, 16 miles, 18 miles, back down. It builds, then it gives you a week off, and then it builds again. So we've done a couple of races, some long races, and we did a 20-mile run on Martha's Vineyard. We just did a half marathon in Quincy on Sunday. This Saturday is the big 21-miler. All the charities go to the start and run to the top of Heartbreak. So those are all really good training runs. You really have to put in the miles. You have to do lots of long runs. I think I've logged in like 400 and some miles since I started.
I also asked Ms. Bolson what her diet is like, but she said she is a vegan, which she thinks is a bit unusual, although there are plenty of marathon runners who are vegan. While she doesn't eat any animal products, she does eat a lot of salads and whole grains. The night before the marathon, she is planning to have a big pasta dinner to boost her carbohydrate intake. Both Ms. Bolson and her husband are running for the Cure Alzheimer's Fund, a Wellesley-based organization which donates 100% of its funding to finding a cure for the mental disease.
Well, the fund started in 2005 because there wasn't a lot of Alzheimer's research. So the founders of the fund wanted a better model to find a cure, not patient care. So they started the fund, and they've raised millions of dollars, and they have researchers all over the world trying to find a cure for Alzheimer's as their focus.
Ms. Bolson says she agreed to fundraise for them after meeting a woman who worked there during a neighborhood progressive dinner. The other co-workers at the fund are probably very happy for her. Her children also seem very happy to see their parents run.
Oh, my kids are very excited. They're really excited. It's a big deal. They know it because the town shuts down. You can't drive, you can't go anywhere. Everybody watches the marathon. It's so fun. It's a really fun day, and my kids know it's something I've wanted to do for a long time, so they're supportive. My husband's supportive. All the neighbors are supportive. It's everyone I've asked for funds for the fundraising have been very supportive.
I'm gonna clap my hand and cheer.
Cool. But you're excited for her? Awesome. Another Wellesley resident, Chris Cavallorano, is running for the National Braille Press. Rather than training by running marathon laps, he cross-trains. I met with him here at his workout place of choice, CrossFit New England, to ask him about his training.
My training is probably a little more atypical than most marathon training. My first goal was to really dial in my diet in January, so I started eating what they call a paleo diet, so really naturally based stuff. And what I found was when I combined that with a CrossFit sort of high intensity, various duration exercises, I was able to lose weight and still gain strength. And so I'd spend less time running, more time CrossFitting, and then on the weekends I do some more long runs and ultimately build to just last weekend, my last long run 2 weeks before the marathon.
Mr. Cavallorano tells me the cross-training is better for his body.
I don't have a runner's frame, I'm tall, I'm heavier than most people, so to have that high intensity, shorter durations gives me the sort of physical abilities that I need to run. And I think a lot of people, when they tend to go longer in miles, that's when injuries happen. So believe it or not, by not running as much, I think I'm sort of lessened my exposure to injury. So I've been healthy the whole time, so I'm happy for that. So the National Braille Press is located in Boston. Like I said, they've been around for about 85 years, and they manufacture Braille books and stuff, and for them it's really about parody, not charity. So if you can imagine, to produce, say, Harry Potter, it takes a ton of time, expense, materials to produce it in Braille. Literally, it's maybe, I'd say, like 6 to 7 feet in height in terms of the Braille copy, and their mission is really just about parody, being able to have opportunities for people who are visually disabled versus sight-seeing counterparts. So when I came on, it was amazing. I don't have a personal connection with blindness, but seeing what they're able to do in terms of the talents on their staff, as well as the people who they support, kids that are musicians, they're writers, lawyers. I came on board with a guy by the name of Eric Weinmeier, who was the first blind person to summit Mount Everest, and I can't tell you how inspired I am to be around the trustees, the staff.
What sets Mr. Cavallorano apart from the other charity runners is the way he is running, entirely blindfolded. Interestingly enough, he has already had experience running blindfolded, but this will be his first time running a whole marathon. In case you're wondering, he will have a guide, of course.
So I've run, I think, maybe 2 or 3 times blindfolded with guides. So I have that under my belt. The marathon's 42K, so I'm basically 8 times in that distance and multiplying the duration of time. And what it comes down to really for me is just being really inspired by the ability to really count on other people for the race, to get me through, to put in the time, the training, to physically be ready, and then ultimately to benefit a charity that I think really highly of. So for me, it's really about putting the time and effort in on my personal side, but then putting my faith and trust in the people who are going to guide me. They're the ones who get me across the finish line.
The charity that I'm running for is called Summer Search, and this program is aimed at Boston high schoolers who are in at-risk schools.
Katie Ellinger is 18 years old and the youngest Wellesley resident to participate. She goes to boarding school in Andover, but I met her at her parents' house when she came home for the weekend.
Right now, the Boston Public School education system, a freshman going into the system has a 7% chance of graduating college, which is, the odds are just so stacked against them. And so Summer Search helps by providing mentoring for a small group of students, and the sort of big experience for them is to go on a discovery trip in the summers, 2 of the summers that they're in high school, and they do things like the Outward Bound program where they're hiking around and experiencing nature, seeing things that, when you're living in Boston, you don't get to see.
Miss Ellinger is running with the Marathon Coalition, which is a group of several small charities that only have a few years licensed with the Boston Marathon, so they can only take on 15 runners each.
So these charities all sort of banded together and were trained by one coach, and all of us meet once a week on Saturday mornings to do our long runs together. And so because of this, all of these smaller charities, they have a bit more ability to properly train their runners. Well, I've been running for several years now, so I was already in pretty good running shape. It's really just a matter of getting my mileage up to the point where I can actually run a marathon, because most of my races in high school are, a cross-country race, which is 5K, which is around 3 miles. So there's a pretty big difference there. So what we did was we started out with some pretty small distances, doing maybe 15 miles a week, and only running 4 days, cross-training 1 day, and then taking 2 days off.
Along with the rigorous training, Miss Ellinger says she is happy to be able to take on this challenging opportunity.
I guess it's exciting. I mean, it's something that not a lot of 18-year-olds have a chance to do or would really be able to do if they did have that chance. And this sort of came at a good time for me because, I'm pretty much done with high school. I'm going on to college, so this is a gap that, I'm not going to be able to run the marathon when I'm in college, and I wouldn't be able to run it when I was any younger. So right now is really the right time for me.
The soaring temps for this year's marathon made running extremely dangerous, and several runners collapsed from the heat and had to be carried off the course in a stretcher. Luckily, all 3 of the Wellesley runners I profiled successfully completed the course, including Miss Ellinger, who, at the time I interviewed her, didn't seem all that concerned.
The Marathon Coalition meets around the Newton Hills area, so I've had a lot of training on heartbreak.
Reporting for Around Town, Grant Mukai, Wellesley Media.
Good job.